As a society, we are grappling to address the scourge of gender-based violence and unequal gender dynamics. A key role player that is often overlooked is the media and creative industry. In partnership with civil society, government and regulatory bodies, the Step It Up project developed a statement of commitment for gender equality in South African media. The voluntary statement motivates South African news and entertainment media organizations to become positive forces in the country's struggle with gender-based violence and inequality. To speak to us more about this campaign, we are joined by Soul City's Senior Manager, Gail Smith. Gail, thank you for your time and thank you for joining us on Weekend Dawn. I'd like to know, how do media organizations become more better in their reporting, especially when it comes to gender-based violence? Just to be more clearer, in a way of being more, I don't know, just sensitive when it comes to sensitive matters.
I think it begins with the individual, and I think it begins with the individual journalist to begin to understand what gender equality means and why it matters. I think that social and behavior change starts with the individual, it moves out into the community, and then it is also institutional and structural. So media organizations such as yours do have a duty to ensure that they do reporting that is gender sensitive. Everyone in the country has a responsibility to gender equality, and I think it does begin with individual journalists first to begin to understand what the issues are. But this has been a project that has been ongoing for over a year with UN Women, GIZ, Soul City and other partners to begin to work with the media as an industry. So we move beyond what's just on the screen and we start to look at what happens behind the scenes. So for the first thing is to try to get more gender sensitive reporting, including commitments around language, voices, and who you use in your media coverage. So you don't only call a woman when it's something to do with gender or Mother's Day or something feminine, but that you recognize that women have capacities beyond, just caring and nurturing. So the unstereotyping in the entertainment industry and storytelling to get people to stop using stereotypes that are damaging and that really do nothing for women's equality. And I think the third pillar and one of the most important pillars of this program for the media and the media industry has been creating a safe and equal space behind the scenes. I think we're all aware that there have been in the last few months many allegations against men in the media industry, but this is not new. There have been serial rapists in the South African media industry. We know that men are abusing their power and that women who work in the industry are vulnerable. So it's got three thrusts essentially. One is to create different content. One is to get people to think about the ways in which they report on issues, not just on gender-based violence. And then one is to create a safe and equal space behind the scenes.
What's the response been like for this statement of commitment? Have you had a lot of good responses coming from media houses and production companies?
Not the responses that we would have liked, which is not surprising, because a lot of people do like to pay lip service to gender equality, but don't actually want to do anything about gender equality. Look, it's early days. It was just launched last week. I suppose I should ask, has Newzroom Afrika signed it? Have you? Have you asked your management? And I think that's really the issue. It's not someone else's problem. If you work in the media, it's your problem. You should be concerned about gender equality. We have had some take-up of it. A few media houses have. SABC Radio across the board have signed. It is new, and we are trying to gain traction and to get more production houses, media houses, individual journalists, because it's not just organizations, so individuals can also sign the statement of commitment.
Apart from the statement, I'm just thinking, when you mention things like unstereotype storytelling, for instance, that would also involve having more women at the table when it comes to script writing and putting together a production. Are you seeing a lot of production companies coming together and being more fair in terms of storytelling?
Well, I think there have always been women who have owned production. I think there have always been women in the film industries at all levels, writers, directors, producers, etc. Are there enough? Absolutely not. I think that writing is something that is done by men and women, and I don't think it's just women writers' responsibility to address stereotypes. I think men must stretch themselves as well. So I think you are seeing a lot more women coming into the industry, are seeing a lot of women writers. We've been working at Soul City for an entire year with a woman-owned production company with all women writers, some of the best in the industry, to work on a drama, a feminist drama, which begins to address some of the deeply, deeply rooted misogyny and patriarchy in South Africa. But I think the issue is, even just the way you have phrased that question reflects a gender bias. Your expectation that is that it is the women who should do the work. And I think you need to flip the script as a man and recognize that you and men have a role to play, that undoing stereotypes is not women's work, it's men's work as well. Men can and should do gender work, and men in the South African media industry need to begin to question themselves and begin to question patriarchy and the misogyny that is driving the industry, and should actually go and look at the statement of commitment. I think ultimately it will say more about the South African media industry when we see who has not signed. We expect the usual suspects to sign. It's to see to what extent the industry takes this seriously.
And what if they don't stick to this statement of commitment? You expect them to sign, yes, but then what if they don't stick to it? If a production company still has scandals of some sort of abuse or men trying to control women or that kind of issue, how do you hold them accountable after that?
Well, I suppose, there are a couple of ways in which accountability happens. One is the law. So, if you rape someone or molest someone on a television set, that is a criminal matter, and it is the law will step in that instance. Again, the point of the statement of commitment is that organizations, media companies sign the commitment, and then they put in place the safety for women and for gender equity inside of their companies. Now, you can have it's about making sure that you have a sexual harassment policy on every single South African set on every set in South Africa. There's got to be awareness of gender equality. There's got to be a person on that set who is the go-to person in the event of inappropriate touching, inappropriate comments. So what is the outcome and the consequence? The outcome and the consequence should be dictated by the sexual harassment policies of that individual organization. But more than that, as an industry, the industry needs to stop turning a blind eye and just pretending as if this is normal and the way it should be. It's not okay. Gender equality is a constitutional imperative. It's not, you don't have a choice about it. So where people do violate the commitment, I think that their own sexual harassment policies will be invoked, and depending on the severity of the situation, the police would have to be involved.
All right, Gail Smith, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us on Weekend Dawn. Gail Smith is the Senior Manager at Soul City. She was speaking to us as we wrap up Women's Month about the statement of commitment for gender equality in South African media. And I'd like to challenge South African media and production companies to join in on that statement and live by it. It's not someone else's problem. It is our problem as men.